as I mentioned, this is a relocation. This is an apartment building, the fire hall number 4. Happened a few years ago. It was purchased, polished, and the permit was issued for a new foundation. Foundation sits there now. However, the building was constructed. So we now have a new owner who actually wants to take it on and build this apartment complex, one less unit instead of 20. I think what's important from my point of view is I'd like to describe the neighborhood to you. There are some other residences around here. There is a daycare center within one. There is a transit within one block. There is a school blocks away. There is a school 7 blocks away. And there's a high school blocks away. And in other words, this is a perfect location for residents, for family, folks to live. And we certainly get your concurrence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Other speakers board. Councillor Fundura.
Thank you, Worship. To the administration, I know back in 2013 there was a discussion on the application came out to construct the condos, and I'm here now less unit. Why would that be? Why? Because they applied. I think back then they applied for 20 units or something. Only 19.
Mr. Tarlac.
What holds back the other? Why would it be just one less?
Mr. Tarlac.
Through you, Your Worship, I've spoken with the applicant. Perhaps Mr. Searle knows why he reduced it by 1.
Mr. Searle?
Your Worship, and just with the applicant, they indicated that it's their preference to develop with one unit based on their chosen floor layout and use of the building.
Okay, so, but excuse me, it has nothing to do with parking and all that, or so.
Mr. Searle?
Your Worship, no, it wouldn't have anything to do with parking. A site with one less unit would be compliant with the zoning bylaw and meets all other requirements.
Okay, thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Fundura. Other speakers before I call the question. Councillor Flago. Councillor Flago, do you have questions on the report?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those opposed, CARES report is administrative to the outdoor eating and drinking areas requirements. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks. If I get a second on that.
Second, Councillor Young.
Thanks. So, patios. So, administration is asking for, pardon me, some consistent mess here into industrial and commercial areas. Note in the report that it's about 3 different zones and the seats that are allowed in each one of them. This is a trial. This is an ability to get us going and see how this will. The numbers are actually, at least from the Commission's point of view, very small numbers. So it's a good place to start. And we see this being consistent and no issue with this. Seek concurrence.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Are there any to the report? I have a question to the administration. It relates to the larger of through zone forward. Have had 2 or 3 different examples of review coming forward back to what could happen. When will we council and the public discussion the zone bylaws in the bigger picture? Ms. Harlock?
Through Your Worship, we'll go to council to give the timelines. As you know, we've been working for over a year background information, and we're hoping to forward the full bylaw by the end of 2019 or early 2020. So there will be a public consultation process in that to get the public feedback on the bylaw and what things that we see within it.
Between that time and now, will we be more of changes or alterations to the bylaw, or will we be seeing the work plan, that having public consultation, then bringing forward changes? Mr. Harlock?
Through you, Your Worship, correct. We did do some minor fast tracks. There's one more on the books that we would bring forward, of course, through regular applications as we have zoning bylaw amendments and things of that nature that still have to continue. But the large changes to the zone will be coming forward, more comprehensive document for council.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Proposed Southeast Neighborhood neighborhood plan report 18- Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you. May I have his please?
Seconder for the report. Okay. Councillor Findura.
So what you're being asked to do is to repeal the existing South Neighborhood Plan. And while there's a couple of amendments I want to talk about that, I'll call them more major. First one is Anaquad Road and the Arcola intersection. So what happened here was under further review by the province and the closeness to the bypass, pardon me, they learned about traffic being backed up on the bypass as it comes off. So the idea with Anaquad Road was to have a full interchange there, but actually a right out. And this was one of those things that was just at length. Some people were looking for that through to be right there, but what I found in further discussion, I'll present this view, was that it would be very efficient to bypass and get around Torrey Avenue to some of the shopping and so on will be. So it seemed to be well accepted. The second one is Rose Green Drive. Well, at some point in time, in maybe future, actually into the bypass, it wasn't shown on the previous plan, but we're asking for that shown on the plan now so that people will get in the future that is a possibility. For minor revisions, then the sequence, please.
Thank you, Donald. Speakers to the report before us. This is an amendment to the neighborhood plan for East Regina. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. I was wondering if Rachel could provide some details here in terms of the cost associated with this concept. A similar question that I had before with another neighborhood plan. But if we include the parks, the other amenity codes, and potential operations, can we get an estimate of how much it actually costs the city to include this concept plan into the OCP?
Ms. Harlock.
Through your worship, I think we would have to take that away and do work because we don't have that available to account. A lot of factors have to come into it with respect to the land uses and estimated tax revenues and those sorts. But that would be that we would need to be directed to do. It is our long-term goal within our business planning in the next 5 years to do something similar, to have a tool that would allow us to do that. But at this point in time, we don't have it.
Thank you. I might come back to that in a second. If perhaps administration through your worship could, through the densities that are out in this new neighborhood plan, what are we going to see this plan actually comes to fruition?
Ms. Harlock.
Through your worship, then I'll turn it over to Ms. Bizdell. The plan is similar to what was approved before, and so the requirements of the official community with respect to the 50 persons per hectare. I'm Ms. Bizdell to give the exact of the population densities proposed.
Dell.
Worship, the expected population of the Southeast Neighborhood Plan was 8,500 people.
Thank you. I noticed in the report the Regina has some land holdings in the area. Can you walk me through how we develop land? What does it look like when the city of Regina owns land in this new will we see some ideas around affordable housing, or is this something that just be the developer to actually put into play?
Ms. Harlock.
Through your worship, and I'll ask Mr. Court to come up. Did approve for this area to have a land manager. So that's the process that we're undertaking right now with respect to that. But I'll ask Mr. Court to go over the concept with respect to these land holdings.
Court.
Through you, your worship, with respect to in the area, we've basically been working with the concept plan that was developed, and that plan we are developing. I believe it's about 120 acres right now, and we have a land development that is working on our following that concept.
Thank you. Would we follow the same path as a private in terms of paying service agreement fees and so on? Is that how it would work?
Through your worship, correct. When the city puts in an application, follow the same process as any other developer and require the same fees.
Thank you. Two additional items. I was actually quite pleased to see these two components here. It talks about transit board development. Could you please walk me through that look like?
Mr. Harlock?
Through your worship, I'll ask Mr. Brown to go through that.
Mr. Brown?
Through your worship, transit-oriented development talks about bringing some of the land use that have a higher density closer to what the future transit routes to the area would be. So people that are close to the transit routes have a shorter distance that they need to take the bus.
Thank you. Related to that, there's also, I would argue, some exciting and varied approaches to looking at development through pedestrian and bicycle circulation. Could you talk about what kind of bike-friendly system and infrastructure is planned for this?
Mr. Harlock?
Through your worship, I'll ask Mr. Brown to continue. We do have arguments within the transportation master, and as developers do go forward doing their plans, we include the bike and those sorts of things. But I might Mr. Brown to extrapolate on some of the details around that.
Sure. Mr. Brown?
So through your worship, yes, there are both on-street and multi-use pathway networks planned for the development area, some of which are actually under construction through the town's development and also south through the creeks along Chukable. And then north, south, and east-west connection provide connectivity to the rest of the surrounding area.
Thank you. And I guess I actually would like to see a bit more information here regarding the cost of these type of concept plans. That's kind of the missing piece puzzle that I've seen prove these. So I'd like to amend the recommendation here and see administration bring back us the actual cost of maintaining the infrastructure from parks, roads, notes in this concept plan.
Ms. Harlock? You have a comment on that?
Through your worship, as I did, we have a number of service levels we have costed out, but a number of them are not out, and that was what was going to be put out further. So if we could give you, but it would be a very high level estimate. We don't have all of the exacties for those broken down for service levels.
So
I'm just wondering if that might be an underwriting the administration to provide costing to members of council rather than just simply provide that information to council by way of a memo at a high level.
At a high level, we could do that.
I'd be happy with that for now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Bresciani, you're next.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for bringing this forward. I have a question in regards to right in and right out, Anaquad. And in the recommendation, it says, in order to support an acceptable traffic management, the Arcola Avenue Anaquad Road intersection may be designed as a right in and right out intersection. I want to be sure that we're saying there's going to be a right in and right out.
Ms. Harlock?
Through you, your worship, it is my understanding that it is to be designed as right in, right out, but I would ask Mr. Brown to he's confirming yes.
Okay. Mr. Brown.
Through your worship, through discussions with the highways, the specific definition of what's permitted at that location was rights in, rights out, so that is the acceptable solution application.
Thank you for that. And I just want to know example, approximately the just the difference. I noticed actually a change in from Page Industrial to Team Industrial. Could you just explain that, what the difference is?
Ms. Harlock?
I might ask Mr. Searle the details, but Prestige is a different type of land uses that are allowed in its use of commercial and lighter industrial is the light and medium, which have different land use, different industrial use, just have a higher intensity of use. Mr. Searle, do you have anything to add?
Mr. Searle?
Your Worship, not much more to add on that. The difference, both zones, industrial zones, that service related uses. the one difference between the IP and the IA zone relates more so to use and development standard landscaping.
Thank you for that. And then just one last in regards to the roadways. As Woodland Grove Drive, and in the report it indicated that Woodland Grove Drive is going to be also some extra traffic, as well as Chuka. So is Woodland Grove Drive going to be wind from what it is? Or is that going to be some potential there?
To your worship, ask Mr. Brown to go details of how that road is going to evolve over time.
Mr. Brown.
Through you, your worship. Yes. So Woodland Grove Drive to the north of the development area will have the ability to be west part of the town's development, also future into the north, as well as Woodland Grove will currently connect Houghton Road, of course, at the north near Regina Gardens. Houghton Road will provide in the future both connected east as well as it does to the west.
Okay. And one last question. Parks is going to be in this development. What will we have in parks in this area?
Ms. Harlan.
Your worship, I might ask Ms. Bizdell, she the number more readily than myself.
Through your worship, I don't have the specific number or the exact amount of hectares. Generally, residential development requires % of the land to be dedicated to municipal reserve, and is 5.
Perfect. So as we move and take over this land, then we will be able to look at the parks as far as after the returns it over to the city. That's act we would be able to, will be taking land on, and we're ready.
Ms. Harlock?
Your worship, that's correct. They've built it and it meets the warranty, and the city takes it over, and then within our budgets we look at growth-related expansion of the city to take over parks, and each park is depend on the level of park. The maintenance standards vary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shani. No other speakers on the report. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. 2-3 bylaws now. Shani.
I move by Councillor O'Donnell. Bylaws number 2018-1, 2018-2, and 20-3 be and read a first.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council consider the related and will now consider the associated bylaws. 2018- will allow for the reapproval of a pre-approved development to allow construction to recommence at 11.5 Pasqua Street. 2008-2 to provide consistent regulations for an outdoor eating area as an accessory in all commercial and industrial zone. And 2018-3 to provide a policy framework for guiding the growth and servicing of proposed new area in the southeast part of the city. If there is anyone in the gallery who wishes to address council on any of these, I would ask you to indicate your intent at this time. There is no one, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'll vote on first reading. All those opposed? That's Councillor Bershani.
I move seconded by Councillor that bylaws number 28-1, 2018-1, 2018-3 be read a second time.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried.
I move seconded by Christ that council hereby consent bylaws for 2018-1, 2018-2, 2018-3 going to the third reading at this meeting.
All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously.
I move seconded by Councillor Young that bylaws 2018-1, 2018-2, and 2018- be read a third time.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor. Now we'll now move into communications and related reports. We have the delegation here to answer questions only, and that relates to report on the Star Blanket Creek Municipal Service Incompatibility Agreement. So before to that question, before we delegation, one moment, please. I want to just sort of frame this to have Councilor asked the manager to provide a background to report number 1, which we'll get in a moment. Mr. City Manager.
Through you, Your Worship, the report due is requesting by Council that myself, City Manager, enter a tri-party agreement between the City of Star Blanket Cree Nation and CIBC. Now, a little bit of history. 2007, China put in a servicing agreement between the Star Blanket Cree Nation and the city. That was really to enter into a servicing agreement so that ultimately Star Blanket wanted to lease the land to the First Nations University of Canada for its operation. So in order to do that, it's the federal's responsibility to dedicate reserve. There needs to be a servicing agreement between the municipality, Star Blanket. So that was done in 2007. They're now at a point where the federal government is prepared to move forward and designate the land reserve. As of that process, CIB has said to Star Blanket that they need to get some assurance from the City of Regina. First of all, the existing servicing agreement is in force and effect, and that there are no concerns from the city's perspective in that regard. The other thing they've asked is if that situation will change. So if the city was to start concern around the servicing agreement, that we then advise both CIBC and Star Blanket of any concern. The servicing agreement really just provides the arrangement between Star Blanket and the city that they provide payment to the city in lieu of taxes to what the municipal and library taxes are. So really their request to move forward so that they can get the federal designation of land and then lease to First Nations University of Canada. This agreement in no way will have any impact on us. We're providing this. CIB cannot come back, nor Star Blanket Cree Nation, and hold the City of Regina financially accountable for any of their arrangements. So this is really an option for us to provide the assurance that to be able to move forward. We believe that there's a lot of goodwill, and this is a positive move in terms of continuing relationship with Star. We recommend that Council. Mr. Pandilla, who will counsel representing First Nations University of Canada, as the Mayor has indicated, answers.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. So I said, Neil Pandilla, please come forward. I know there's no presentation, but 2 questions, is my understanding. So for the record, if you could introduce yourself, and we'll continue on.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm Neil Pandilla. I'm counsel for First Nations University of Canada in regards to their reserve creation.
Thank you. So any questions to Council? Councillor O'Donnell?
Thanks for coming forward, and I want to give you a chance to express some view we heard from the City Manager. So I'm going to start with the real complication. How's it going so far?
It's been a long process, as you know. The Municipal Services Agreement, in fact, was entered in 2007. There have been some setbacks, but we are now at that, as the City Manager has indicated, where all the parties are on page and the federal government is prepared to transfer them to reserve status.
Very good. Specifically, we're talking about the land at First Nations University, and not that at this point. Is that correct?
No, it's lands where the First Nations sits at the present time. Yes,
good.
That's correct.
And so, if you don't mind, I think from the little bit I am, there's always been a band that has to be stated directly with the with First University, the band. Of course, there are many bands involved. Could you be accurate on that one first? Is that right? That there's one band but many bands involved.
That's correct. The original plan was to have lands held in reserves for the benefit of 74 First Nations of Saskatchewan. Unfortunately, that would have been a lot of administrative headache. And the decision was made at the FS level to just have the Star Blanket protection hold the land for their use and benefit.
Good. Thanks for that. So are we up to the federal government, if this assurance can go through, that urban status can go ahead? That is the last step.
There are administrative steps, but
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay.
This is the last CIBC fully on board.
I got
That's what's happening.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. No other speakers? Questions? Thank you very much. You can return to the gallery, and I'll look at report with respect to the Star Bank and Cree Nation Municipal Service and Compatibility Agreement, CM 18-1. Councillor Bresciani, do you want to introduce that?
I'll move concurrence part. PM 18-1, Cree Nation Municipal Service Compatibility Third-Party Agreement.
No, second, please. Councillor, debate on this good news. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Now I'll move into committee reports. We have the Board of Police Commissioners. Either Councillor or Councillor Murray, if you want to introduce this. This report, clear, is not debated tonight. It's simply a tabling report for this to be considered at the February 27th meeting of Council. So either one of the members of the Commission could rise and introduce the report. Help.
Through you, Your Worship. The Board of Police Commissioners completed the budget with the police services. This is just bring forward, so it's on the docket, and it will go forward to the budget discussions we have on February 27th, I believe. So one of the things on that budget evening that the council will have an opportunity to look at, they come up with their motion to approve a budget.
So I have a seconder for that, please. A referral motion to the next meeting of City Council. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Young. Executive Committee, we have CR 18-5 is a 2017 housekeeping boundary alteration. Councillor Bresciani.
I move concurrence, CR 18-5, that the following resolution concerning the alteration of municipal boundaries be adopted by City Council. That it be resolved that the lands identified in Appendix A, currently within the rural municipality of Sherwood, and described as follows, annexed to the city of Regina boundary, subject to the rural municipality of Sherwood, Council adopting implementary resolution in support of the city of Regina application for the boundaries alteration. So in addition to the lands listed above, the city of Regina also assumed the jurisdiction and control of all registered road allowances in the annexation area, and that's subject to ministerial of the applicable municipal boundary alter is in accordance with the provisions of Section 3, and that the city manager be authorized to approve city clerk to be authorized to execute a municipal boundary agreement between the city and the RM of Sherwood, and that the solicitor, in conjunction with the city clerk, do all necessary to give the effects of the resolution in recommendation number 1.
That, Councillor Bresciani, do I have a say that, please? Councillor Bryce, discussion work. This really is a housekeeping deal of annexation, which land that has been used, at least initially, for the boundary which is not being used, and therefore out into the city. So I think it's fairly clear what this is. A discussion work by any members of council. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move into finance and administration. Hawkins, this is related to the project with Eloquent Systems for virtual software. Hawkins.
On that the city manager designate be did authority to negotiate, finalize, and approve the city into a new agreement or an amending the agreement with Eloquent Systems Inc. for its host virtual archive software service for a 5-year term. And secondly, that the city clerk be authorized to execute the necessary agreements after review of the city solicitor.
Second for that. Second report. Councillor Fundera.
Thank you very much. Your Worship, I'll give just a very brief background on this. The city is digitizing its archives. It's digitizing them with respect, with the assistance of Eloquent Systems Limited, or Inc. The digitized archives will be able for public viewing, so that in effect we've created a kind of virtual archives, 6 million historical records, 25,000 photographs. The city has been working with Eloquent Systems. They seek now to have that extended for a 5-year term. Initial proposal was for an indefinite term, but the Finance and Administration Committee thought that this should be for council at least once every 5 years. The service to this point has been highly satisfactory, and any change would involve a very considerable turnover required to bring on a new company. It wasn't necessary, so the Finance and Administration Committee is recommending this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Speakers to the report. Call the question on favor. Opposed? Carried. Information report. This 2017 annual review of closing committee items, IR 8-1. I'll move it for that, please. Want to move the report? Okay. Councillor Bryce, seconder, please. Okay. Councillor, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? So in December, a notice of motion to look at autonomous vehicles, and electric vehicles. It will be discussed. So I'm going to give the floor to Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to bring the motion forward in a wholesome discussion. I think the best thing I could do, first of all, why I brought the motion forward, and it's about infrastructure. I believe that notion of whether it's an autonomous vehicle or a connected vehicle or an elected vehicle going to have an impact on our community in the shorter term, not the longer term. And so this is about infrastructure. It's all about mobility. I want to give people a quick examples in each one of the categories and to why I'm this forward. I was struck by an announcement that Motors made sometime in the middle of last year, and they want to put 30,000 vehicles on the road that are autonomous, electric by the year 2019, and hence why the number for us is 29. They do to sell those vehicles. They operate a system. You know very well we've been talking about the Uber, Lyft type ride sharing. They want to be in that business. So while I've obviously committed to being on some large American cities' streets by 2019, they may be in others or other companies doing the same thing. So vehicles are as simple as ones that are in a low category, say where put on that little swift cruise control. That's the beginning of autonomous driving. Now I know if you go to buy a new vehicle, there's lane assist, there is brake assist. You can buy a pickup now that'll back up on its own and hook up with the that you want to hook up. So there's all sorts of ways that you can define a driver-led all the way to having in an autonomous vehicle where there is no driver. Also intrigues me, this is that in Ontario, for example, there are a number of test stations from Markham and a few other cities that have already, with license by the Ontario government, are going to be testing these vehicles. They don't have the weather that Saskatchewan does. Comment about connected vehicles. I'll go drive down the Louvain Road at some point in time, and imagine somewhere around Dudney Avenue or just on, there's an app. If we have connected vehicles, you will know 4 or even 6 blocks before the traffic is congested at a point, and you can take a different route. What that connected vehicle does is it reads sensors that are on the road to tell your vehicle that has a sensor in the new cars built in what's going on, and you read it in your view mirror. So what obviously congestion causes a number of things. One is a loss of time and effort, but it also is about fuel consumption. And the transport industry is talking about 22% if we can start to connect. My question on that is, well, I understand how the car will work. Who's paying for those sensors along the road? Does that work? So there are tests going on in the U.S. right now in large cities, but out in Wyoming, in the middle of nowhere, that have highway conditions, much like here, where they're using those sensors along there. I'd like that to be monitored and handled, so that we have some idea what our responsibility is. The other about electric vehicles, struck by from Royal Dutch Shell. Royal Dutch Shell is one of the world's large oil companies. He called a news conference last summer, And what I did, as everybody gathered in front of him, buying a new car. First, the people started to groan as though, what's this about? He said, I'm buying an electric car. And for that, as a company, we're buying the largest company in the world has fast charge electric stations. And further to that, investing $2.5 billion into the no electric and what that does. The future. Tesla, semi-trailer trucks, 10 of them, bought by Loblaw, which will be autonomous. And so this the future way back, the future in the next little while. So now I'm going to go where I began. Why am I interested in this? The cars are all interesting. Sounds like great science fiction. If not, you know what the Jetsons are. Then you to the Jetsons. Here's what I'm looking at. Do we need to have parking lanes in residential if all we're having is these vehicles, these autonomous vehicles? Do we need to have houses with car garages? I don't think that this is going to happen here tomorrow, but I think we have to start at how we develop our city long term and what that will mean. Who has to maintain that on a property tax base? Which is it going? Do people building large car garages, or is that not the future? I know the answer, but that's the discussion I have in the next while. So what I would like to ask, and I see from the motion, is that one, our administration monitors and follows this research that's going on. And by lots of it is in Canada with things like BlackBerry, with things like BMW, and so on. These are the things that are involved in this. There's a race to be the first on some of the street. The second notion is this whole how we handle electric charge. We don't have any cars in Saskatchewan right now. But if to BC and you go to a station, they have a charge in there. That's nothing to Alberta in the next while, and just to other places are struck at. Who's responsible for that? Is it private? Is it at cost? Is it free? How does that all work? To know the answer to that. Of course, at the end of the day, to get us into the discussion as to does this mean for the city of Regina? Is it long-term costs, and how does it affect planning? I think they're exciting. I think we would be foolish if we said, this is like decades away, let's not bother. That wouldn't be right in my view. I think we have looking at the short term. I appreciate you listening. Seek your place.
We're going to actually get a seconder for the motion too. That's important. Councillor Marie, and I think actually you're speaking next.
Thank you. I'd like to stand in support of the motion. I don't want to add from what O'Donnell has done a good job of talking about. I think one of the things is that currently at the end of Manitoba, and when it picks up in Alberta, there's a supercharging station for Tesla that runs across, right? There's a big gap between this one. And my understanding is that that's currently in talks with Power to continue that infrastructure across. And I think it's one of those things we need to be ready. It does come because it could be next year, could be even sooner. So I stand in support of it. Thanks.
You, Councillor Marie. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm an enthusiastic supporter of this motion. Thank Councillor O'Donnell for bringing it forward. For all of the reasons he outlined, the important with respect to commercial vehicles, it's important for another reason. In council, often we're dealing with day-to-day matters that have to be dealt with day-to-day. It's not very often that we're able to come up and see what's going to happen in 10 or 15 years. It's not very often that we have a very long time horizon. Councillor O'Donnell has created an opportunity for us to do it. And it has immediate relevance, because what Councillor O'Donnell does is it says it's not good enough for us to plan for today. Planning for today is already out of date. We've got to be planning on a long-term horizon. And that is because the city right now is planning new subdivisions, and specifically thinking about the RRI lands that I hope to see come forward. For those lands will have the very kinds of issues that Councillor O'Donnell has raised with respect to vehicles, but he just as easily raised them with respect to environmental consideration, green buildings. All of this is not something for that we can say, oh, this term it won't be for a long way. This is something that in the next 10 years, I believe, is going to happen. So Councillor O'Donnell's motion is not only wise in terms of the vehicles, but it also points the way we should be thinking. when we direct our planning to new visions. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Stephen.
Thank you. Deeply support this motion. I comment and a question for Ms. actually in terms of your interpretation of some of the language here. Now, first, my comment. Historically, oil companies and the oil giants were instrumental at chiseling away at public transportation in some of the growing cities like Los Angeles. And as a response, cities like Los Angeles, Detroit, and elsewhere divested from transportation options that were currently in development. And in their place, saw a city built around the automobile. It sprawled freeways. I worry, considering the I've seen Elon Musk, that we're going down the road. What we're going to see here are morals on the road, and that poses challenges. And I'm pleased that this motion actually looks at them. So my question for administration is, based on interpretation of the language, do you see room in here to actually provide an analysis of the impact opportunity from a public transit perspective on how we might want to change? That could be from an idea about public transit services and so on.
Mr. Sear.
Your Worship. So, Councillor O'Donnell, I got a page to talk to you about this, but Councillor's done a really good job of defining opportunities. In terms of how we design neighborhoods, how we plan our city, I think there's real opportunities that, are there options around transit vehicles? And when we look at our roadway line, how we, some of the parking challenges we have. I think the opportunities that we have for motion is to start a conversation. So whether that's the University of Regina, the Regina Airport Authority, Regina Health Region, we're all facing challenges on transportation, transit planning, parking. So there is an opportunity, and we would definitely, through this motion, take a look at beginning those conversations. We can bring some of those impacts to the council when we report in 2019.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, I don't need to add any language to include transportation as an option.
Mr. City Manager?
No, Your Worship, that will be included in our in the work we're going to take.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Councilor, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Young.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Your Worship. If I recall, Councillor Wade Murray was forward to us about 2 years ago, and at the time it seemed premature, and we weren't ready for thinking about how it would even pay to put an electric charging station here at City. And look at how far it's come just in the last years. I'm very much in support of this motion, and I think there's something to be learned here, that sometimes change comes faster than we might like it to, but we have on top of it, and we have to work with others, as city manager said. We can't wait till we're comfortable with it. We have to be ready to, because it's coming faster than we planned for it. Because we have to pay for this too. So everything comes down to budget, and I think that's an issue, but I think we have to tackle it. So thank you.
Thank you, Young. Other speakers to motion? Councilor Findera.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I do say thank you to Councilor O'Donnell. You have to remember, a lot of people don't realize that we do have electric charging stations in Regina. I could probably ask you if you know where they are and how many they are, where they are. So that we're already looking to the future. So this adds that flavor that we are thinking about. And when I said about Jetsons, I'm old enough because I do remember them. So, but I'm going to see that putting a nice for our children to kind of be ready, and this will be ready for them to innovate and get out there and do it. So everyone's talking about big and see about the industry and oil. We have to go with that. We have to really look at Regina made. So this is Regina made, don't mention. We are 40 to plus 40. Huge change in temperature. So this is a perfect test, like a test pipe on this extreme changes in. Thank you, Councilor Donald, and I'll say thank you to Councilor Murray way back then to start up, and I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councilor Bresciani?
Thank you. Through you, I also think this is great. I think we're looking more proactive way rather than reactive. And I think when people try, you get to really see exactly in states and other countries, they have already started. I know one of the things when I was Dom Pizza, they already have the driverless card, and they want to move quickly. So again, I just hope planning that we are looking at the whole aspect of from green to everything environmental pieces, and to see how other cities have done it. So thank you for bringing this forward, and it's a very, very exciting city.
Thank you, Councilor Bresciani. Any other speakers to Councilor Bresciani, could you tell, please?
Mayor Fougere?
Mayor, thank you. I rise instead of very strongly to this and thank Councilor O'Donnell, as we all have, for bringing this forward. And I do acknowledge Councilor Murray talked about, particularly with respect to electric vehicles. What is of interest to me in particular is, from all the comments we made to support them, is the notion of the varied climate that we have here in Regina. We do, as a jurisdiction, to talk to whether this is an area where some of this new technology can be touched. That, to me, is important. This is a fast-moving area of technology. And this is where time, of course, it's the private, the market is trying to sort out where we'll go. Autonomous, electric, how it's going to be, whether the Tesla vehicles that Councilor O'Donnell mentioned, whether inside cities or they're just simply between cities. Didn't know that yet. Certainly, talking with voters at the Big City Mayor's Caucus meeting before Christmas, they very much said they plan to see these cars on the road in 2019. That's remarkable. Do we get? I don't know that, but it's important that we be the game to talk about that and see what we can do. Just as important, just as critical, is to be proactive in terms of our planning in our new neighborhood and the retrofitting of our existing neighborhoods. What does that mean? How is that done? As was before, the cost, what that would be. We don't want to be in this fund, unable to respond, having difficulties, though we don't want to be. So I really like the motion. It's forward-thinking, anticipation, and trying to delve through different threads of technologies going where. But it's coming to than we think it is. So certainly this conversation last term, it seemed at that time clearly because it was in the past. But now we're seeing some technological breakthroughs that have time, and we should be ahead. So support the motion. It's a great idea, and look forward to passing the motion. Thank you. Do you want to close debate? Question. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. That's great. So we'll move on to a notice of motion. This is not a debatable motion. It is a motion put forward by Stephen and Bresciani with respect to safe and sidewalks. So what we'll do is allow the reading of the motion, but there's no doubt it will happen next month. Either Councillor Stevens or Bresciani, I'll give more. You want to draw straws? Want to flip a coin? Councillor Stevens? Yeah. So there's no debate, just simply to read them the record.
Okay. Just bringing it. I'm having some problems with this. There it is. That the following meeting law be considered at the February 26, 2018 meeting of City Council. The administration report respecting the following amendments to bylaw number 9881, the clean property buffer City Council for consideration by second quarter of 2018. One, that the owner of a rental property be required to sidewalks along the front and sidewalks adjacent to their lot within 48 hours after snowfall. That bylaw enforcement have the authority to visit a site and notice to clear the sidewalk. And If upon a reinspection the sidewalk is not, the city will have a contractor complete the work and charge the cost under property taxes. 3, non-compliance may also result in issuance of a fine as per provisions of the bylaw. 4, excessive challenges faced by residents due to snow and on sidewalks.
Thank you for that. That is now the motion, so we'll move forward on bylaws. Councilor Barshiani.
I move, seconded by Councillor Simmons, that bylaws 2018-4 and 2018-5 be introduced at a first time.
In favor? Opposed? That's carried.
I move, seconded by Councillor Hawkins, that by 2018-4 and 2008-5 be read a second time.
Any discussion on second reading? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
I move, seconded by Councillor Nelly, that Council hereby consents to bylaws 2018-4 and 2018-5 going to a third reading at this meeting.
All those in favor? Opposed? That unanimously.
I move, seconded Councillor Murray, that bylaw 2018-4 and 2018-5 be read a third time.
All those opposed? Carried. Last item on the agenda for this evening is with respect to capital point that has been put on the record. It's not a debate, it simply is for information. So I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Seconds that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Very much, everybody, and have a great evening. Bryce Fendera. Yep.